Now, from CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Good morning, I'm Jim DeFede and welcome to Facing South Florida. In recent weeks, we have been taking a look at the power and influence of Spanish language radio here in South Florida. A recent report documented some of the falsehoods and conspiracies promoted on Spanish language radio in the days following the riot at the Capitol on January 6th. Some radio hosts, like Augustina Costa, spread crazy lies that thousands of dead people voted and that tens of thousands of people voted more than once. Another person mentioned in the report was Ninoska Perez, a longtime voice in South Florida who has a daily show on the Univision-owned station, Radio Mambi. The report cited statements she made promoting the view there was fraud in the election. Compared to some of the other things others were saying, Ninoska's comments were fairly mild. Ninoska says the report, prepared by Florida Rising, Prospero Latino, and others, should be discounted entirely because those groups are all aligned with the Democratic Party. But it is worth noting the report simply translates what the various radio show hosts said, and they include the audio clips as well so you can hear for yourself. I invited Ninoska to come on this week to discuss the very real issue of disinformation. Do you owe your audience good information? Do you owe it to your audience to provide them accurate, truthful information?
Jim, I don't think I would be in the place I'm in today, still in radio, 25 years in Univision, and before that, if I did not bring people truth, but I cannot regulate what somebody else thinks. Like when with the election results, people were very upset, and they were very upset for very good reasons at some point. The counting was stopped. Pennsylvania, which the voting is regulated by the state legislature, had changed the laws with the governor, a judge. So these are issues that people want answers to or have concerns about.
But when you phrase, so let's talk about Pennsylvania just for a second. And when you talk about Pennsylvania, and you had Congresswoman Maria Vera Salazar on your show to say 200,000 more people voted in the election than are actually registered, you and I both know that is absolutely 100% false, correct?
But again, I see on every major news outlet, a lot of politicians go in there and say I don't see anybody saying, oh no, wait a minute, that's not true, that's not so, when it comes to conservative voices. Now, when it comes to that, I don't know if she had the information. I don't know. I don't even remember in what context she said it. And that's the thing with this also, that this report puts the things that they want to say and not what context they were said in. I don't even know. I don't even remember.
But again, Ninoska, the issue becomes, what is the information that your listeners are receiving? You and I both know that, especially within the Spanish language community, radio is their #1 source for information. So the information that you and other stations provide to them are critical to their understanding of what's going on. So when you give bad information, when you allow guests to come on your show and spread lies and conspiracies, and you don't counter or check them, that's a disservice to the very community you're there to serve.
Yeah. Okay. If a congresswoman comes in and said that 200,000 more voters voted, and in the end, when the elections were certified or that was told that it was not true, I come out and say, this is it, the elections have been certified. So none of that obviously was true. I am telling my listeners that this is it, that she might have been wrong or giving this information. I don't keep saying that. And I think there's a very, a distinction that has to be made between news and between opinions that are given on the radio. They're not happy with what people are saying on the radio because it affects them. It affects the fact that they lost 2 Democratic seats. And that's what they're trying to do. I have no problem with them going back and attacking me. I've been called, when I was a spokesperson for the foundation, I was interviewed by every major newspaper and news organizations. And I was always called a hardliner, extreme right wing. I don't have a problem with that. I know who I am, and my listeners know it. And I don't have to accept it, but I don't have to put out a commission so that they don't tell me that. Is that truth or is that not truth? I'm a hardliner, and Obama sits down with Raul Castro in Cuba at a baseball game, and I'm the hardliner.
When you go on and continue to question the results of the election, immediately after the insurrection at the Capitol, when things are so tense, isn't that doing a disservice? Isn't that continuing to throw gasoline on that fire?
Jim, for an investigative reporter to tell me that questioning something is throwing gasoline at the fire, I have a problem with that. And this is the thing. I believe you're one of the best investigative reporters I know. And for these people to come up with this truth-finding mission, and they're all Republicans, I think they should be labeled as such, not as a public service or what a great job they're doing, because they're questioning what I question on my show.
But Ninoska, as a reporter, I wouldn't just make a statement like that. I would do the research. I would read where the law was originally passed in 2019, who the sponsors of the law was, which were Republicans, how there was a period of time in which Republicans had a chance, or anyone had a chance, to challenge the law, and they didn't. And that it was only after it became clear that Donald Trump was going to lose that they rushed to the state Supreme Court, which unanimously rejected those claims. Unanimously. Even Republican appointees to that court rejected it, and the U.S. Supreme Court rejected it. I wouldn't continue to be talking about...
But I did not continue talking about that. I probably explained it at some point. I don't know exactly. That's why I'm saying that when you take sounds and bits and pieces and conform them to the report you want to say to make us look like white supremacists, like racists, like people that ignore the truth, I do have a problem. I would just be very happy if they could come out and say, look, we're Democrats, we're deeply concerned about this, but I don't have a problem in them saying it or questioning. I have a problem with them selling themselves as the ones that holds the truth, and people like the Miami Herald saying that they're doing a public service. To whom? To the Democrats.
I think one of the issues becomes the number of voices that are on the air on the Spanish language side. In English, you can certainly make the case that there's bad information, disinformation, whatever you want to call it, in English language, whether it's the view that some people hold about Fox News or about MSNBC. But the point is that on the English language side, there is a number of voices. Everyone hears them.
Jim, the radio goes, and on TV and everything goes by the numbers. If this is the audience that the Spanish radio has, I don't see CNN putting conservative people out there, in the same amount of people that they have liberals, and I don't see any other station doing it. Why is the Spanish radio being targeted? Because the Spanish radio has always been bothersome, now and always, when it comes to elections. And they know it, and they lost 2 seats that are important to them. Again, I have no problems. They can do this report and say, look, we're Democrats, we're deeply concerned. What I have a problem is them trying to become the truth, the ones that have the truth in their hands, and criticizing other media outlets, criticizing this like this is a public service.
One of the things I love about living in South Florida is it was about 15 years ago or so that Miami-Dade County became the first major metropolitan area anywhere in the United States where the majority of people were born outside the United States than here. So when you have a lot of new arrivals, particularly from Latin America and from the Caribbean, coming into the United States, the radio often becomes a way in which they process their arrival into this country and what they see. And if you use that opportunity to indoctrinate, as some might say, or to give them bad information, aren't you doing a disservice to them?
Why are we being held to this standard and not CNN or CBS or ABC? Why are we being held to this standard?
Because the community that you serve are more likely to be new arrivals and are looking for good information. I would hold the same standard for El Nuevo Herald.
But again, it's so simple as not buying El Nuevo Herald or turning off or changing the dial on your radio. I don't think that we are.
But change the dial to what? That's the question. Is If there are not diverse views on the radio, then where do you change the radio to? On TV, I can change it from CNN, I can go to Fox, or I can go to MSNBC, or I can go to Newsmax. I don't have that variety in Spanish language radio here in South Florida.
In other words, because they don't like that the majority, which is not everybody, because you know there are a lot of people that are not conservative on radio. So they have a choice to go to another voice. So we're being targeted because we're conservative, because we're not Democrats. That's what we're being targeted from. Again, I don't tell CBS or ABC how many people they have to have from each nationality, or how many conservative and how many Republicans. And you know that most of the news are liberal in most of these newspapers and stations. I don't have a complaint about, I mean, I can complain and I can write a letter, but I don't have to make up a report attacking us in a way of saying that we're white supremacists and pretending that we don't have a political interest.
Well, they didn't make up a report. They simply quoted you and your fellow hosts on different radio stations as to the type of information that was being put out there.
Yes, for example,
immediately after the riot at the Capitol, when things were very intense.
Right. For example, they complained that, and I don't do it that much, but another radio host does it. They called Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, did I give Hussein's name to Obama? No. Barry Soweto changed his name to Barack Hussein Obama. How is that something to be questioned? And that's part of the report.
Well, why
the
do you,
fact
why
that,
do you,
that,
most
that,
people just
that,
refer
that
to
Obama is called Hussein.
Most people refer to the former president as Barack Obama. Why do you feel the need? You explain it to me. Why do you feel the need?
I don't feel the need, but I don't feel the need, but that is his name. Do we agree that that's his name?
That's his name, but what's the purpose in your using his middle name that way?
I don't know.
Mine is James Edward DeFede. People don't often refer to me as James.
I know, but what if that lady that does the show wants to say it? What is the problem with that? That is his name.
What's the point of her saying it?
I don't know what her purpose is.
Well, when you use it, when you say,
I can just use it like I can say anybody's name, either, full or not. But again, I did not make up his name. He took that name onto himself. And now it's a problem that he's being called Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, I can write pages of the things that have been called by the press. Does this make the press good, bad? Do they need to be regulated at some point?
Well, nobody's talking about regulating you. Nobody's talking about creating a commission to silence you. But there are saying
and these people are sending this report to everybody, and they're saying that, they want to talk about this because they're doing the community a huge favor. Even the Herald says it. They're doing it a public service. Again, to whom? To Democrats. Go out and say what is their purpose in not saying this, because obviously they are Democrats and they want to win an election, and that's fine.
The issue still remains that the listeners of your show, of other shows, deserve good information. I agree with you. It blurs the line when you are someone who gives your opinion. But when what you say and the guests that you invite and that the information you elicit from them ends up spreading either conspiracies or falsehoods, you're doing a disservice, I would wager, to your community if you don't correct those things.
Jim, I have seen things on major news outlets that I know are not truth, that have not been corrected, and I don't see these people creating a report to tell them what they should be talking about, because it's major media, but they do it with us.
I will say there are websites that do that. Project Veritas does that. Media Matters does it.
Right, not these people. Not these people. They want to come to us because for some reason we are the lesser people. These are the Spanish media. Let's do this and tell them what they have to say or talk about.
No, Ninoska, I come at it from a completely different vantage.
I'm not saying you, Jim. I'm talking about the report.
I'll tell you how I view it. Again, I go back to what I said earlier. I think that the reason why this is an important topic is because Spanish radio is so vitally important in this community, as is Spanish television. I mean, you've seen the studies. The majority of folks in the Spanish language community here in South Florida get their news and information from Spanish radio. Second is Spanish TV, and third is social media. And the social media platforms are another part of it. You see something on WhatsApp, you see something being spread in social media, it gets talked about on the radio, and it becomes this sound loop. I think that this is an important thing to discuss because of how important Spanish radio is and the power it holds.
If someone listened to my shows, I am always saying, when people call about a conspiracy, I say, no, there is no truth in that. You're getting that from social media. This is not so. I don't have a source to prove that. And I do that all the time. So to single out one incident like this, which I don't know in what context it was put in, I think it's very unfair. But again, I have no problem with their fairness or not. I have a problem with them becoming the holders of truth and the media accepting this as a social service, which is not. It's strictly political.
When we come back, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Stay with us.